It is now 7:55. We have ended the executive session and are starting our regular session.
Madam President, prior to recessing into the executive session, there was a motion and point of order actually brought by Commissioner Pollard. Based on that point of order, there was a motion made as to who would attend the executive session. Commissioner Herron identified that the General Counsel and Human Resource Manager should attend. That motion was seconded by Commissioner Young, and that motion was then voted upon, and that motion passed 3-1. Commissioner Spikers was not present for that. Then we did go into the executive session at approximately 6:35.
Thank you. Are there any corrections or anything? Okay, thank you. Moving on, communications. I don't have anything to share, and so we'll move to our superintendent, Tom Packer.
Thank you. The report is available to the public, and the commissioners have copies. I'll start with our affiliation strategy. Steve, Daniel, and I have begun meeting with each of the organizations to review our financial information and discuss the major deal points I presented at our May work study meeting. We will conclude those meetings by July 23rd and report our findings at the July 25th work study meeting of the board. Finances, always a preview here. The financial report will show in May that there was a net loss of $152,000 compared to a budgeted net income of $136,000. Unrestricted cash rose to $9.4 million. Year-to-date net income is $274,000 compared to a budgeted net income of $46,000, a favorable variance of $228,000. I'll just note, average daily census in May was 21.3. It's the first time in quite some time that our average daily census was under budget. And a reminder, our budget this year is 22.2, with an average daily census of just about almost 90%. The occupancy rate for May was, as you see here, 85%. ED visits in April were 335, equal to the visit of our budget. Operating expenses in May were 2% over budget, but they are still 1% under budget year to date. In June, a preview, June inpatient average daily census was also low, 19.9, 80% occupancy. The ED visits were 328, which is over the budget of 324. We know, by the way, that area hospitals have all been experiencing lower than budgeted average daily census. We also know that the number of referrals that have been going to skilled nursing facilities, as you know, we do a lot of post-acute care here, that the referral stream was light over the last 2 months due to the low census at other area hospitals. Rural Health Clinic. We anticipate approval once we receive the unannounced site survey. We do have some information based on recent surveys of other hospitals, and based on that, we expect our survey to occur late July or early August. In outpatient rehab, we've launched messaging in the communities we serve that our outpatient rehab program accepts patients who are covered by Apple Health. Other outpatient rehabilitation providers in the area limit the number of Apple Health enrollees due to low reimbursement. As a critical access hospital, we receive comparatively favorable payments from Apple Health and are thus able to provide services to this group of local residents. For those seeking information on receiving outpatient rehabilitation services, members of the community should call our outpatient rehab scheduling office on the numbers here. I will note that as we were going through this process and I was mocking up materials and we ran ads in the local paper as well, that some of the interesting feedback I received was that when we use the term outpatient rehab, it's often thought to be outpatient drug and alcohol rehab.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really good feedback to have. And so our ad says right on it in bold letters, physical therapy, and then talks about the 3 modalities that we have in outpatient rehab, which are physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. So that clarification may help with the public's understanding of what outpatient rehab is here at the hospital. Moving on, our employee satisfaction and culture of patient safety survey. As I mentioned previously, we completed it. The survey results have now been compiled, and a presentation will be provided to the board at our August work study session. Lastly, or actually second to last, because I have one that's not in the printout, 4th of July at Snoqualmie Ridge, the hospital provided a first aid station for the Snoqualmie Ridge 4th of July celebration, red, white, and boom. The station was staffed during the day by Dr. Spiegel, pediatrician, and medical assistant Samantha Wilson, and at night by Nikki McBride, RN, our manager of endoscopy, outpatient infusion, and wound care. Staff reported that many people came by the station. There were some first aid needs and gratefully, no medical emergencies, but we were there just in case. And lastly, a note that's not in the report, Truman Waller, who has been doing a videotaping for this meeting, and I have been working on how to get the video accessible to the public, because that's been the design from the very beginning. And he and I have worked out now how to have that video on our YouTube channel. And he has the information for posting that up, and that will happen this week for all the videos that he has done for our board meetings. We'll also provide links for the public to those videos from our website. And that concludes my report.
Counsel Hauser, would you allow me to say something prior to letting you speak?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Could you ask for questions about the CEO's report?
Yes, I guess. Yes, you may, Commissioner Pollard.
Isn't that what we traditionally do?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, when you say here an affiliation strategy, you say each organization. Could you remind us of what organizations we're working with?
Happy to. They are the University of Washington, UW-Medicine, Virginia Mason, and Overlake.
Okay. And when you say we will conclude these meetings, what does that really mean, to conclude the meetings? Will we know whether they're interested or not?
That is our goal, is to be able to bring to you a report that shows their level of interest and the kind of relationship that they're comfortable with. That's the goal.
Of course, like to have someone with interest, but it's also important to know who doesn't have interest so we can not focus on them.
Correct, and that's why and to that point, we're working with 3 organizations rather than 5, because too early on decided that this was not for them.
Okay, good. Since I don't know, what advantage is this rural health clinic status to the hospital?
It has a significant financial benefit to the hospital in terms of Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement. And Steve Daniel has done a lot of work on projecting that. That's been factored into our budget, but it's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars of increased reimbursement to us on an annual basis.
Even beyond our full cost reimbursement?
Correct. Correct.
This is a bonus on top
this
of it.
This is very important to us, yes.
Okay. With respect to the 4th of July, did we have brochures out there on the table to talk about?
Lots of information there. So okay. We're not just a first aid booth.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Tom Parker's, Superintendent Parker's comments about the hospital. PT, physical therapy. Evidently, we have a gentleman. His name is
Tim Huber.
Tim Huber. And Tim Huber, my husband has a problem with the hip all of a sudden and has come in here. Where else would I send him? And he was hugely impressed because Tim talked about exercises that he could do that would make the muscles that needed to be stronger, so that the pain would go away. Even things like a rotator cuff. If you have a rotator cuff injury, you can, instead of having surgery, you can rearrange how your muscles work with constant PT, so that physical therapy, so that you can still function without surgery, or even function without getting that cortisone shot. So I know he went down and talked to Tom, and I was very embarrassed to hear that. But
not Tim.
Not Tim. Gary.
Gary.
My husband went and talked to Tom. because he was so impressed. So I just want to let people know that a new patient, a new client.
We're happy to have him.
I don't know. You can keep him.
How can we capitalize on his apparently exquisite skills here?
I understand that he is accountable now to his upper staff and give them ideas and telling them what he does and why he does it, and maybe some.
So he had some ideas that he communicated to Gary about growing the program, and I asked Jim Scussel, who's director of rehab, to connect with Tim, our therapist, and get those ideas and bring them into our marketing efforts.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. Your turn.
An excellent report. So, board members, we're going to give your Robert Rules a reminder tonight, and this pertains to what is identified as assignment of floor debate, but the issue is decorum. And
Thank you.
That's why I wore a tie today.
all right, because of decorum. Decorum is defined as behavior in keeping with good taste and propriety. It's etiquette. And using basic parliamentary procedures, the Robert's Rules has 4 key components. One is to facilitate the transaction of business. You're trying to conduct business. Second, to promote cooperation and harmony. Third, to ensure that all members have equal rights, privileges, and obligations. And fourth, and importantly, ensure the majority has the right to decide, but the minority has rights which must be protected as well. So the right of the minority to be heard and also be listened to. So very briefly here, in confining your remarks to the merits of the pending question, in debate, the members' remarks must be germane. They must be pertinent to the topic at hand. Then a point of order could be made, and the president would say, that's not germane, move on. Refraining from attacking a member's motives. You would never attack a member's motives. You focus on the issue, on the debatable portion, and not the member or the reason, the personality, and under no circumstances should you question the motive of another member. You should address all your remarks through the chair. You never address one another directly, but through the chair. And while another member is speaking in debate, you wish to address a question to him or her, you would then not address them, you would address through the chair. You rise and address the chair. This is an informal meeting. You obviously don't need to rise. You would avoid using the members' names as much as possible. The use of the names of members should be avoided in debate. And you should refrain from speaking adversely on a prior action not pending. That's similar to confining your remarks to what is germane. You don't go back and say this is a prior act and it's not pending, and unless you have a motion to reconsider or rescind a prior act, you should not go there. And then finally, you should refrain from speaking against one's own motion. If you promote a motion, you should not speak against your own motion. There is a last version on page 2, and that just says reading from reports, quotation, etc., only without objection or with permission. So if a member objects, a member has no right to read from or have a secretary read from a paper or a book as part of the speech. So just the decorum reminders that I would encourage the board to take into account. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counsel Hauser. We appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Do I have approval? We're going to do a consent agenda for approval of the minutes of June 14th, 2018. And there's no physician credentialing. So we can scratch that off your...
I move approval of the consent agenda. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
Yeah, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a second? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Okay.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Who seconded?
I did.
Emma. Thank you, Hal. Okay, so no minutes. Approval of the minutes. We already did that when we did the consent agenda, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Committee reports. Finance Committee. Commissioner Spikers.
Thank you, Madam President. I had to say that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Politically correct with decorum. So anyway, let's move on to that report. We are, I think, Superintendent Parker summed up some of the highlights of the month. It all came down to census, I think, and we boiled it down in finance meeting. about exactly how much money, how much difference one patient day or even a half patient day can make. And I checked and double checked and cross-referenced, if you remember, all of our supplies and our revenues based on that information. And the figures actually came pretty close to what I would have expected with a half a patient day. Is that about what we were down?
Almost a full.
Almost a full.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was almost a full.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that we had an issue, I think, and I kind of want to get on track to have more updates with the 43B program because it's below what we projected. And is that because we haven't signed up Fred Meyer and
Yeah,
such?
Kroger was in our original projection, and they're not taking a new enrollment. They've got, as I mentioned before, a window coming up in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
But we had put them on the list of target pharmacies, and we understand that they're working through some internal operational issues on their 340B program, and they don't want more
Issues.
Enrollees while they're working through those.
How much is that going to affect? I thought that this program was going to benefit us about 130,000, or maybe it was just 70,000.
No, you're right. Yeah.
That's pretty good memory, even though it was like 4 months ago.
And that was actually our conservative estimate. We back in our minds we were hoping for more, but again we don't have full enrollment of all the pharmacies.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think it's going to affect? What our projections are?
For this year, total revenue for this year is probably going to be somewhere around 7 full months, probably about 70,000.
And what was our projection? 70 to 130?
Oh, yeah.
So we're at the low end, but we're still within projected for our budget.
At the low end, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah. Well,
Want to keep on budget? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the other thing is we had an MRI repair, and we had the public disclosure or public records request defense. So we had some additional costs. They were not significant, but the MRI repair was, a few thousand more than we anticipated, I believe. So that's how nitty gritty we are. We're actually looking at anything over, a couple thousand that's off of budget. So we're keeping a good eye on it. Staff is keeping a good eye on things. We're still above what we're projected year to date for our budget. We're in the black. I don't say we're in the black, but we are actually ahead of budget by about $250,000. Or not quite, but $225,000. 225,000. So we may have another difficult month because of the census apparently throughout Puget Sound. That's what we're getting word of anyway. So be prepared for another loss this month.
Commissioner Sparkers, may I interject for a moment?
Yes.
Just to let you know that that slump seems to be rectifying. And there's been much more activity in the swing bed referral stream, and the hospital is coming back to the kind of census that we had budgeted for.
Okay, so we
July,
may not be a loss. Maybe closer.
June will definitely be a loss.
June will be a loss.
Definitely, but July is looking better.
Okay. Well, I hope so. We had 31 days too. So
Yeah.
We should make up some of that. Okay. The other thing that we talked about that was pretty interesting, that it caught my interest quite a bit, is the Puget Western proposal. It's in our packet, page 3, near the bottom, number 3. You might want to read that. And obviously, we don't want to outright buy land next to us for really no reason, but there may be a reason to maybe be able to work with the city and actually purchase it for set-aside acres so that the city and us both want our property to become part of the city. And so that the use can change on it if we want to, or if the city feels like it could get a lot more taxes, if the use was changed, that's for sure. And if the county was thinking, I thought maybe the county would be able to change their mind anyway. And if we were designating 30 acres of protected space, that would go kind of hand in hand with the master plan, King County's master plan, which
Is it up to be reviewed again, the master plan?
In 2.5 years.
yeah, it's a while way off, but it's something that you need to think about and start working on. Yeah. And so I propose I would love to sit down with the city officials and see what their thought process is. I think they would want to hammer out some kind of projections and tax revenues versus purchasing part of the property. And, we would need to have some kind of, but we should do it soon because it's for sale.
Right.
And it's been up for sale in the past. I think it was at 1.2 million. It went to auction about 8 years ago. It did not sell.
Did not sell, but yet they increased the
And
price.
I think they would have taken 1 million back then, in my understanding.
But they have increased the price from 1.2 to 1.3 now.
They developed they put $1 million into it.
To develop, is that why the price has increased?
There's been a lot of work on the property, clearing and that kind of thing. And it's set up for sites now to build. And that takes a lot of money. And I don't know if they got clearing permits, so that costed money, I'm sure. So I'm sure they got at least $1 million tied up, at least, into site prep on it. It'd be kind of interesting if there was a set aside acres and they decide to let the 20 acres we have go to the city. So I think that's a really good
come into the city
come into the city
commercially.
Yeah.
Right.
So guess what that would mean? An increased value of about 4 to 6 fold for us. So
Valerie is working on finding us a time to sit
all right.
down with
Well,
us.
let me know.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. I would like to speak to him. No more than 2 commissioners can go to the meeting.
Right. We had thought about having the finance committee who had seen the issue to meet with the city, and of course it's summer and getting schedules together has been tough.
Okay. So hopefully we can get that in the next couple of weeks.
Working on that. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, so anyway, just those are the highlights. If you have any questions, I'm here at your beck and call.
I have a question.
Sure.
First of all, the property we're talking about, that's on the south side of our property?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess the question that always looms in my mind is, how would this affect our efforts toward partnership and affiliation? I feel that we're not in a position to gamble. And I don't think this would improve our chances for affiliation. So while it might be a nice idea, I think we ought to pass on this.
Okay, well, it's up for discussion and thought. It came up, and nothing is concrete or anything like that.
It's good that we bring these things up for discussion.
We want to be transparent.
Yep.
And I just thought it was an idea. I'm only one of the 5 here, obviously, and everyone will have their own opinions about if something that did get on the agenda to talk about. We'll all, I'm sure, talk about it.
Another clarifying question.
The chair recognizes Commissioner Pollard.
Yeah, I thought we were leasing the MRI, but apparently we own it.
No. I'll clarify that. We actually have the MRI and the trailer that it sits in are 2 different lease arrangements. We have a maintenance agreement on the MRI, not on the trailer. We decided to go at risk on the trailer, and the repair was on the trailer. Actually, the repair is on the cooling unit that is on the trailer.
Oh,
But it's all MRI. But we are protected against the major potential for a repair cost on the magnet on the unit itself.
because we're leasing.
Correct.
Good. Well, I was worried about that. I was going to ask, wouldn't it have been smarter to lease it?
We do lease it. Now, just so you know, if you lease major medical equipment such as this, it doesn't mean that you are free from having to repair it. If you have a lease on any major medical equipment, you are responsible for its repairs, and that's why you get a maintenance agreement on that equipment. And we do have that on all of our major medical equipment.
Now, that's reimbursable on a prorated basis under for CMS. And
Right,
so forth.
both the lease and the maintenance contract.
Also, yeah, very good. The other thing is something we discussed in Facilities Committee, and that's the HVAC upgrade lease extension. Once again, we're extending out now 5 years, 5 additional years on the property for the Ridge Clinic. And I ask myself, is this an advantage for us in our affiliation process? The reason being that the organizations that we're talking with, UW Med, VM, and Overlake, all have nearby clinics. And therefore, could this actually be seen as a burden on them if they were to affiliate with us? Do we have an escape clause in our contract?
May I?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll speak to the affiliation piece, and this is on our agenda tonight, and we can have further discussion on it later. But specific to affiliation, this is actually a benefit to us because every organization recognizes where the future is going in terms of how the revenue is going to flow under value-based contracts. Under value-based contracts where you're paid to manage a specific population, the revenue comes in through the primary care provider and then gets distributed out to the services that are being used by that population from that primary care practice. When we were in discussions a few years back, Overlake actually made it very clear that the clinic must be part of the deal because it is so advantageous to have clinic under these new reimbursement formats.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we will move on.
Well, I will have one motion
Yes, I think so.
at this time, then, is to approve the
Warrants.
warrants for accounts payable and payroll of $2,584,086.89. So this was not a 3 payroll month. Otherwise, we'd be over $3 million, I'm sure. But it is actually above budget this month. That was another thing, was above our payroll was above budget this month, about $20-some thousand. Not significant, but there's a lot of PTO, time off, that kind of thing.
And that's what costs the above budget?
Yes.
I see.
Can I second your motion?
Yes, you may. Seconded by Joanne. Is there any other discussion? Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the warrant say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
And now we are moving on to medical committee.
Does that motion pass?
Yes,
I
the
think
motion
it-
passed. I'm sorry. Motion passes.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, Commissioner Spikers.
well, you've heard a bunch of the medical committee's report from Mr. Parker. Our DOH, cardiac and stroke reader certifications were both received with accolades for technical design of quality design, and not in this report that you're receiving, but the recertification people are going to be using our template in the future because they thought it was so great. In September, Harborview telestroke neurologists are anticipated to start. The Stop the Bleed program was taught to our clinic staff this past month and will be taught to Riverview schools in August. Friends of Youth, and hopefully Mr. Parker can add a little, anticipated to be open on July 10th. Well, it's past the 10th, so if there's anything.
It has been launched,
Yeah. Has it been launched?
Yes,
Friends
it
of
has
Youth?
been
Yes, I thought
launched,
so.
yeah.
Yep, people could sign up and
Yep.
receive services now at both sites.
Okay,
And I would like to add that organization has been involved in the local area for quite a while now, the whole time I've been on the board. So Friends of Youth is already know what the issues are in the valley.
What organization is that?
Friends of Youth.
Friends of
Oh,
Youth.
yes, of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And the other thing that's important is MACRA, which is Medicare Access and CHIPS, Children's Health Insurance Program, and MIPS, which is a similar thing. Performance was our performance was 86.4%, which is excellent for the first year, and it resulted in a 1.27% bonus in addition to the standard Medicare payment rate for physician services. If you want more information on the MIPS program, go to qpp.org.
That's the
Oh, right here. Yeah, right here.
performance payment.
Okay,
Mhm.
any questions?
Question, Madam Chair.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Pollard.
And that is about the bleed program would be taught to Riverview schools. That's fine. Lower Valley goes all the way to into Duval, which is outside our district, but that's fine. But my question is, are we doing the same thing for the Snoqualmie Valley School District 410?
We already did.
Oh, that's already been
We
done.
launched that first.
Okay, good, very good. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Young. Now we're, Commissioner Pollard, you're going to give us the Facilities Committee
yes.
report.
Okay, thank you. Now, this meeting had to be rescheduled back a week to June 18th because of the Chelan event. And so this report is kind of getting old. I mean, it's almost a month old now. And so things have happened since these minutes were taken, and lots of developments on the facility side. One is landscape maintenance. If you've noticed, we've gotten some help on getting the landscape up to a point where our people can maintain it. And it's quite beautiful, although today was awful hot, and things look like they wilted a little bit, but we'll get water on it. I think you'll agree that the landscaping is very attractive, and they're doing a great job, the facilities manager and his team. As mentioned here, there was airlift training with the helicopter. I think all of this is described in the committee minutes, which are on the table, so I don't want to have to read all of these things or go over all of them. We've already talked about the Snoqualmie News Clinic HVAC system. We've dealt with that for 2 or 3 meetings, and that will be that has been discussed enough tonight. I think one of the things you might want to look at is when you come in the lobby of the hospital now, you see on one of the pillars very attractive directional sign, and that is new since last month. By the way, Tom, anytime you want to interject, please do so. Also, take a moment to look into our quiet room. You know, that started out as a chapel. We considered meditation room like they have in the United Nations. We ended up on quiet room and moved out some of the furniture so that there'd be space for our Muslim friends. By the way, they have a mosque here on the ridge to put down their blankets or to go to the floor. And it's a very attractive room with a nice ambience, and I think it's a very positive thing for the hospital. I think you'll agree. Now, I didn't get a copy of the hospital accessibility, or rather the visitors that are using our hospital as meeting place. But I think it's pretty much as has been before. Is that correct?
A little bit of a drop off here for the summer because some
Yeah.
of those groups are not holding meetings during the summer.
Okay. I think we do have a development on traffic. And Tom, do you have a moment to mention?
I do. It's a very minor update, and that is that the city of Snoqualmie and I have been working on a number of different ideas for what we call traffic calming on the Parkway near 99th. The one that we're working on right now is the idea of grooves in the pavement that alert people to the fact that they are in a 30-mile-an-hour zone and hopefully slow down some of the cars that are coming southbound near the turn into the hospital. The point person on that, whose name is now escaped my mind, Dan Marchenko.
Yeah.
Marchenko, yeah.
He has he wanted to inquire if there are any issues from police and fire.
Yeah.
So he has done that, and both chiefs of police and fire of the city have said we don't have a problem with that. So now they're moving forward with putting that into their budget.
Good. Yeah, that text stream should help. If you want to know what that's like down in Falls City as you come from Carnation, they've got that. As you come down I-5 southbound going on 520, they've got that in the off-ramp there.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty standard product that seems to be very effective. Tom, would you like to add anything to our report? Otherwise, I've finished.
I don't have.
Okay.
No.
That presents, that's the conclusion of the report of the Facilities Committee, Madam President.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollard. Does the board have any questions of the Facilities Committee? Hearing none, we will move on. Ad hoc Bylaw Committee. Commissioner
Oh, I'm
Perrin?
sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to read a summary of the Ad hoc Bylaws Committee for today, for this evening. And do you have any comments here about it? The committee met for its 6th meeting and continues to work on proposed revisions to the bylaws. Proposed amendments continue to be reviewed for the 2 documents that will be proposed by the committee, that is, the rules of procedures for the hospital district and the bylaws. Additionally, the committee reviewed and discussed the following issues. But keep in mind, this work is still in progress. So if you have any comments later on down, you will be free to give it, we'll give it a full attention. So the issues were potential code of conduct for the board, excused and unexcused absences of commissioners for board meetings, term limitations of officers' board positions, and we discussed the board agenda items. 5 additional executive session provisions for the number 5 additional executive session provisions for the board, and number 6 committee charters. Other items identified by the committee will be addressed as well. One of which was is to ask, because you had mentioned about the election of president. So could you please present it to the board now, because that is what our legal counsel would like to, in order for us to be able to. Yeah.
When we elect a president, somebody makes a nomination, and then we nominate for vice president. And I think it would be a lot of organizations have a vice president that moves up to president. So once we start that process, if you vote for your president, make nominations, elect a president, and then do the vice president, after 2 years of being president, you move up the succession of the vice president, and then what you're voting for is a vice president, not necessarily the president. And it just helps consistency, and it helps prepare somebody for the position. If you've not been president of this, then you're walking in blindsided, and you may not do as good a job as you could do if you had more preparation. So it's just a lot of professional organizations, that's the way they run their boards. And so it was a suggestion that we do that with our bylaws, that we say we've got a vice president, we have a president, and if the president isn't there, whoever it is, then the vice president's going to take over anyhow. So it's just a good.
Well, what happens to the president in that case?
Well, the president becomes just a regular board member. I mean, you're still. That one thing it does is it helps also not letting a president be the president for year after years after years, because it has a fairly good, it's 2-year term, so that's 4 years that you can be president, and then you move on to something else, so you don't have the same person in the presidential role.
I agree with the concept. I talked to a public hospital district representative when we were in Chelan. And they do it a little differently, and that is they move up their secretary, and they make a change every year. So they move the secretary into the chairmanship and so on. But there are different ways to do it, but I think the concept is good.
I think the committee probably would like input from other board members, but it was just a thought that in the past, I think the presidents were in too long. When I get done with this term, I'm done. And I feel like that's the way it should be done. It should be just 4 years is plenty of time to be president, and let other people lead. And
you might consider one other concept, and that is, while president, ask another board member to run that meeting, get some experience in running the meeting, just occasionally. Give everybody a chance to run the meeting.
Well, that's another way.
Just on an ad hoc basis, doesn't have to be.
The only thing, though, that to me the argument against would be that you need consistency to know what you're doing, and it helps everybody when you know who's doing what for a certain length of time. And consistency
well, that's true,
helps.
but at the same time, I think it's a learning process for everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're done with facilities and the bylaws. Is there any old business that we need to address? It is on this agenda. Okay, new business. We have some resolutions that need to be approved. Resolution number 5420718, which is approving the third amendment to lease agreement for the Snoqualmie Ridge Medical Clinic. Resolution number 5430718, approving the terms of interlocal agreement with Washington Rural Hospital Collaborative, and resolution number 5440718, surplus equipment. Do I have a motion to do them all as a unit?
I would prefer that we automatically go through each one. It won't take that much more time.
Is there any other discussion from the board about that?
Well, I definitely would like a little bit more discussion on the first resolution, but as far as the resolution 2 and 3, I would think that those could be done together.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and discuss resolution number 5420718. Do you have some?
Actually, I have a chief financial officer who does. In your packet, behind that resolution is a table with some numbers, and Steve has worked on this lease, and he has some information to provide us about how the future payments of the lease compare with the lease that we've had and its periodic price escalations. Steve?
Okay, yeah. What we do is we say, okay, let's take our current lease and its renewal options and look at the cost versus what's the cost with the extension for the same period of time. And the landlord will pay $19,838 to improve our HVAC control system. What the landlord has done is that they will spend $19,838 and not increase our rent over what's contracted for now. So they are doing that to keep us as a tenant. They view us as a very good tenant, and we view it as a very good location for the clinic. Tom could talk more about that. Commissioner Spikers asked about the assignability of the lease in preparation for affiliation. So I asked our counsel to review that. I looked at it and, you know, so what you.
Sure, there is a assignability, and it's identified that it will not be withheld. Tenant agrees it shall not be reasonable on the lease and under applicable law for landlord to withhold consent only under certain conditions. So it's not going to be withheld unreasonably. It's pretty typical lease language. I've read through it. It's a lease that goes back to 2004, actually, and it's been renewed. You would be going on to your last renewal. It has that 5-year renewal. But it's pretty straightforward. Landlord is not being unreasonable in his request here. It's been assigned once previously. So I don't think it would affect any assignability. The only caution would be as if you tried to assign it to somebody that has no financial ability.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
you'd be.
You say it's already been assigned once.
It was previously assigned back in 2004. You took over an assignment.
Oh, we took over it.
You did.
Assigned it to us.
Okay, I got it.
It was assigned to you.
Thank
An assignment of lease with consent by landlord. It was the NWCC Investments LLC. They consented as the owner and landlord with Jim Carl and Heather Carl, who at the time was the Indigo Ridge, and they assigned their interest to Snoqualmie Valley.
Well, I would think that if we affiliate, we'll be affiliating with an organization that's financially stronger than we are,
Exactly.
and they should celebrate.
Exactly. Yeah, so I don't see any issues. It's a rather lengthy assignability clause, but it's pretty clear that it would benefit you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there any other discussion or questions on it?
Yeah, on 2021, which is 5 years later, is that a fixed rent increase, 10%?
Yeah, it's built into our current agreement, and it continues
That's what I would ask.
at that same rate
Uh-huh.
if we extend it at this point.
Okay. What was the original lease? Was it also every 5 years, 10%? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
That clears up my question.
Okay, so we,
I move approval of resolution number 5420718.
Excuse me.
Point of order,
yes,
and that is that under new business, it is an opportunity for discussion on these items.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Thank
not
you
to
for
be
the
a-
correction.
Public comment, and then we,
Yeah, thank you
Yes.
for the correction.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Okay, so as far as discussion on the other items, I don't have any discussion.
okay, thank you, Commissioner Coble.
I do.
Oh, okay,
I just want to use the opportunity to let the board know about the interlocal agreement with the collaborative.
yes,
Yeah.
The purpose of that interlocal agreement is to better specify the activities that we're doing through the collaborative. The existing interlocal that we've had through what was called the PhD hospitals, it wasn't actually all the public hospital district hospitals, it was just called that, really was an interlocal agreement to allow participating hospitals to come together and do managed care contracting as a group with insurance companies for our rates for the services we provide. The collaborative living under that, it worked for a long time, but we have been doing a lot more vendor contracting now and joint service agreements. For example, we all came together under the lab contract. We did the PACS system, which is the digital archiving and processing of all of our medical imaging together. And so the more we do this, we realized we needed an interlocal agreement that properly represented the group buying and group purchasing activities of the collaborative, and that's the purpose of doing this interlocal. Just want to let you know why we're doing
We have been doing this, have we not, for years?
We have, but we've really, a lot of our work with the collaborative has been around best practices on a clinical side and processes. But now we've really been focusing on joint contracting for supply costs, for supplies and for services. And so this makes it very clear that we are able to do that as a collaborative.
are there any more questions? Okay, then we will let this sit here until we do public comment. It is time for public comment. Does anybody have comment?
For the record, Scott Scowcroft, and I'd just like to commend the board for having a minimum of discussion about Robert's Rules of Order and other things that really don't matter. This is appeared to be a much more productive and harmonious meeting than last month. So I just wanted to give you a tip of the hat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we will move on. Do I hear old business?
New business.
New business?
New business.
New business. Yep, we just want to. New business. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution 5420718, 5430718, and 5440718?
Since we had such a productive discussion about those during the discussion phase, I'm willing, if Mr. Sparkers is, to go ahead and approve them all together as a package. So let me make that motion and see if there's support.
I would second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I think we accept that as a doable thing. All those in favor of approving all three of these resolutions, 542, 543, and 544, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Hearing none, it passes. Okay. And we already did public comment, so that's done. Okay, other. Do we have anything under other?
Yeah, Madam President, may I have the floor?
Yes, Commissioner Herring.
Okay, under other, I would like to make a motion to censure Commissioner Pollard for breaking protocol and going outside of the board's governing duty, specifically 1, directing operations to staff members by sending negative messages and instructions via email, and 2, continued refusal to accept the board's decision in approving payroll warrants, failure to participate in the CEO evaluation per our bylaws and RCW 7044 Public Hospital Districts.
Do I hear a second?
Well,
I didn't understand it. And
Let me
I
repeat.
wanted to clarify it a little bit.
why don't we
Yeah.
see that in writing?
Yes, it is in writing.
Well-
This was a result of the last week and the current information that was received today. There were 5 pages long that I feel Commissioner Pollard, for breaking protocol and going out. So let me repeat. Under other, I would like to make a motion to censure Commissioner Pollard for breaking protocol and going outside of the board's governing duty, specifically 1, directing operations to staff members by sending negative messages and instructions via email, and 2, continued refusal to accept the board's decision in approving payroll warrants, failure to participate in the CEO evaluation per our bylaws and RCW 7044. And the performance of the CEO evaluation is one of the major duty we as a board ought to abide. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
I think that.
You don't have a second.
You don't have
Yeah.
a second discussion. You can ask the maker of a motion a clarifying question, though.
Thanks.
Okay.
I guess I'd like to have more clarification on the facts. Not, some of these I might know myself, but been here and well aware of. But there was one item I believe I was not aware of. Is it my understanding that Commissioner Pollard did not partake in the evaluation
Correct.
process?
That is correct.
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry, I did participate by
Point of
providing
order.
my
Point-
comment.
Point of order,
Point
now
of
you're
order.
getting in a debate. There was a clarifying question. If the maker of the motion can clarify the question, that would be appropriate. Otherwise, you need to receive a second if you're going to get into debate.
Okay, let me just clarify. The recent, this afternoon's email, the performance okay, let me just clarify. Yes, Mr. Pollard, you did not participate, and you did not, I feel you did not use the right form of the bylaws of the performance evaluation. You put it in the email directed to a staff. You must follow protocol on that. You must, yes. So does that
Okay.
clarify?
It does.
Okay.
Madam
you.
President,
Yes.
you now have a motion. It's been clarified.
Yes.
You do not have a second. So if there is no second, it will die for lack of a second.
I would second based on the clarification.
Okay. Then we're up for
Now
a
you have
discussion.
debate. It is debatable now. It is a debatable motion. A censure motion requires a second. It is debatable. It is amendable. It requires a majority vote for passage.
Can I make any comment about this motion?
It's debatable, yes.
Okay. One of my concerns is that the board as a whole had a vote of what they wanted to use, the tool they wanted to use for an evaluation. Commissioner Pollard voted against it, which is fine, but then he refused to use it when the majority voted for it, and then used his own put together whatever he wanted to use and made an evaluation, which does not run along with what the board had decided. And we're supposed to be a unit as a whole. So I was disturbed by that. I was also disturbed that he was directing staff. We had staff that he was writing long emails, taking a lot of time for them to read them and address them. So those are not in line with our duties, and they're not in line with the RCWs that require us to evaluate the CEO with a document that we all agree on. So that's my
You
concern.
apparently did not read the email carefully. And you might remember that last time around, I also did not participate because I felt that the instrument was incomplete and faulty. That is my right. And now the email I sent was in response to the question by the CFO, and we were told to go to him if we had any questions regarding the evaluation. Now, what I provided was what would have been, if there had been space, the commentary part of the evaluation, and that was all I intended to respond to. So, this is the kind of thing I've faced ever since I was elected in 2011.
Commissioner Pollard, we're not going
Which
to
is
go.
nothing less
We're not-
than...
Point of order.
That's not germane to the
Thank
motion
you.
before the body.
Okay, well, go ahead and vote, and let's go ahead, let's
Well,
censure.
there's a
I
little
think
more
it's a good
discussion.
idea.
I'd
Yeah,
like to-
let me also, as the maker of this motion, personally,
Excuse me, Commissioner Herring, I'm going to let Commissioner Spikers have an opportunity first, and then.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I've been on the board for quite some time, and this is not the first, this is not the second. This is the third time that Commissioner Pollard has refused to evaluate the CEO. Because I've been here, and I've been on all three times that he has. And I'm not going to say it's good or bad, or I'm not going to point the finger at him. I'm just saying that's the facts. I was very concerned a couple of months ago when a staff member was apparently there was made the staff member feel uncomfortable, and I'm not saying I know anything more than
Madam
that.
President, that would appear
That would
not
be
to be
tweaked.
germane to this motion.
Okay.
That is
Okay.
going back
Because
in
it's
history,
back-
and as
back
we talked
history.
about decorum
So-
and debate.
I thought that was part of this thing here
I don't
about
believe so.
making a.
You could get clarification from the maker of the motion, but it would be my view that it pertains only to an email sent to staff recently pertaining to.
Okay, directing out to
evaluation.
staff member. Never mind. I'll withdraw that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I thought that was part of it. I don't have anything in writing. But also for the past, since I can remember, Commissioner Pollard has never voted to approve the warrants and payroll that we have a duty to pay our staff. And if we were ever failed to do that, we could be in a lot of trouble not paying staff. So I know, so I do think that it's proper at this point to censure him, to make him understand, or at least think twice before doing some of the things that are before the board this evening.
Is there any further discussion? All right, then I will call for a vote. All those in favor of censoring Commissioner Pollard, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
I oppose. It's ridiculous.
So it passes. The motion passes. We're not done, Commissioner Pollard.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll stand.
Oh, okay. If that makes you feel more comfortable, that's fine. Also, because we've done a censure, I think it would be appropriate, and I'm not sure what that totally means. Maybe somebody else does, but
A censure is a motion that has been passed by a majority of the board. It will be part of the minutes, part of the record, but it speaks for itself as to what the censure was.
okay. I think, unfortunately, because there is a censure and because there have been other things that have been difficult for the board as a board because of Commissioner Pollard's attitudes. As president, I'm going to make a motion that the board accept my removing him from the facilities committee and placing somebody else on that in that position.
I second.
Is there any other discussion?
Well, what this amounts to is a fine, because the only way we are paid is by participation. If you remove me from the facilities committee, you're essentially levying a fine and removing the income that I normally would get. And I think that that's totally unfair. If you want to reassign me to another committee where you think I could be more effective, that's fine. But that's just a rather unfortunate action.
I want a clarification. You didn't say from the committee, you said from the position as chair.
No, I just said from the, we have two people on the committee, and I would remove him from the committee. And it says it in our bylaws, the chairpersons of such committee shall be appointed by the president and serve for terms not to exceed 2 years, subject both to removal at the will of the board and to reappoint in a sole discretion of the board. Committees of the board shall meet periodically as provided by the bylaws and provided by resolution of the board. I think he's been doing a fine job there, but we have a couple incidences where leadership needs to be held accountable for all of us. And we've had another incident, well, anyhow, under this situation and directing staff as he did in his emails and they have to spend a lot of time reading what he's saying and not getting the work done that needs to be done. So I would like a motion. And if I don't get one, that's fine. But
You did.
I made it.
No,
Yeah.
second.
And second. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, there will be a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Opposed, obviously.
The motion passes.
Madam Chairman, your committees require appointments, and under the facilities committee, it is to be 2 commissioners, and now it appears you only have 1 commissioner, so it would be appropriate to appoint another commissioner to that facilities committee, since your bylaws require 2 commissioners, the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the VPMA, and the general counsel.
Can I make a motion?
Yes?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend President Norris to the facilities committee.
And the president, again, makes those appointments subject to the affirmation of this board. She does make the recommendation, but those appointments are made by.
Go ahead.
I just have a question. How many committees can you be on as a board member? I thought there was a...
I'm only on 1 committee.
She's only on 1.
That's fine.
And there is no limitation in your bylaws as
There's
to
no
how many
limitation.
committees you can serve on.
Well, I would second that motion and then hand it over to Madam President for either a vote or for review to appoint based on the motion.
Okay. I think, is there any further discussion?
Mm-hmm.
Hearing none, then why don't we make a vote? All those in favor of me being on the facilities committee and probably the lead, I don't know.
That's fine.
Okay. Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
So you do now have 2 committee members on the facilities committee, and the chairperson of those committees is appointed by the president. So then, Madam President, you would either appoint yourself or the other member who is on that committee with facilities, and I'm not sure who that is.
That's Emma. And do you want to be head of that committee? You've been on it longer than you. I mean, I haven't been on it. So do you want to head up that committee?
I will yield that position to Madam President.
Okay. Then I guess I will appoint myself as head of the facilities committee. And I also want to say this is not pleasant, Commissioner Pollard, for any of us. And
Least of all for me, Madam.
I'm sure that's true, but
It's retaliation.
it is not retaliation.
No retaliation.
Wait. I would.
I'm out of order, so I will be quiet.
And that we haven't been we have not adjourned yet, Commissioner Pollard. I just want you to know that it is important to be all of us to be together and work as a body together. And when we decide as a board, and we've gone to lots of effort to do it differently, instead of just having a president decide whether to do the review of a CEO all by themselves was not appropriate. And we wanted to expand it to make it a total board responsibility. And when you send emails and you don't like, and then you also say that our process isn't as good as Evergreen's. Our process should be like Evergreen Hospitals. We are doing exactly the same process they are doing. Exactly. And I know because I've talked to their parliamentarians. So I think that we need to be careful of the assumptions we make, and we need to be careful of what we say. And we should be a unit that works together.
I do have my First Amendment rights, and I think I expressed them appropriately and sent copies to all parties so they would know what I said, including responding to the CFO and informing Mr. Parker. So if this body can take that action if they wish. That's the way it is.
Okay.
So,
just for my final comment, personally, I've been on the board 2.5 years, and my observation has been, we are working very hard together. That the voters elected, as I understand, that we were elected by the voters, for us to not just for whatever sex, gender, whatever religion, race, we were elected because of our ability and capability to govern and to follow the bylaws. And with that, I think that personally, as a commissioner for 2.5 years, I feel very inadequate and incompetent by Mr. Commissioner Pollard's constant use of rubber stamping, easily manipulated, lack of critical thinking. It makes me feel, this is just a personal.
We are not supposed to.
I'm sorry, but my personal opinion. Thank you.
Obviously, it is appropriate.
It is
if we've
appropriate.
left that topic to go back and revisit it.
Past
Past
things.
Consider
It's always
point of
okay.
privilege at some point, but that hasn't been granted.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Wait.
Move.
Wait, I want to before we go, we have work study July 25th, 2018. And then our next meeting will be August 9th, 2018, 6:30 in this conference room. Who wants to move to that we?
I move that we adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.